Welcome to another episode of Theological Pipe. News, culture, sports, politics, and everything else from a theological perspective.
It's all summed up in love.
What should I do? Tell me. God is good. Give it to me, give it to me, give it to me, give me peace. Give me peace.
Put that in your theological pipe and smoke it. Hey, you are here and you are appreciated. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you guys. Hit like, hit subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Comment if you want to. If you're on Google or Apple or Spotify, subscribe to that as well. Appreciate everyone being here. I'm going to get right into it. This is a quote from a sports executive, a guy that covers sports and ratings and stuff like that. And he's talking about the ratings for the NBA. And we're going to talk a little bit about sports and ratings and what they mean. And he says this, he goes, the biggest competition right now is summer. And this is in response to people saying that the ratings for the NBA are down. And he said, the biggest competition right now is summer. There's a reason why most sports don't play in July and August. It's because your competition with summer and summer lifestyle. I would say anyone looking at ratings and say it's down or up would be irresponsible. Anyone looking at ratings and say it's down or up would be irresponsible. There's no context to it. There are no comparables. And the numbers, and you can go look at any number sites, and depending on the week that you look at, if you look at articles from last week or this week, there's different ways to take it. But for the most part, what I've found is the NBA ratings are down 4% for the playoffs that have just got started. Down 4%, and people are saying, see, if you go woke, you go broke, and the NBA is front and center with the social justice woke sports. They donate to Black Lives Matter, and again, I've mentioned that before. The phrase Black Lives Matter is 100% true. Of course, the organization is an anti-American, Marxist, anti-family, just not a good group of people. And their leaders are even worse than what I just said. You can go look at them, look at their quotes, look at who they are, look who's on their board. It's just not a good group. And so the NBA has probably been the sport that is front and center with social justice, with, hey, we're gonna pound this home, and more power to them. That's fine. What a lot of people are turned off on is their aggressive stance in that area, and the fact that when anyone wants to call them out and say, hey, you're talking about Black Lives Matter, an anti-family organization, they'll shut you down. And the biggest hypocritical part of the whole NBA movement and what they're standing for is when someone mentions China, they clam up and they'll even defend China. And China is probably the worst country in the world right now when it comes to human rights abuses. They are, they're taking groups of people and putting them into concentration camps right now. So the woke sports is, in my opinion, what's causing the NBA ratings to be lower than normal. Now, you can throw in the fact that sometimes it's weird watching the games when there's nobody in the stands. I get it. You can say that just adds a little less to the game and it's not as exciting. But after 5 months of lockdown, we canceled sporting events, we canceled concerts, we canceled going to bars, we canceled going to comedy clubs, we canceled going out to restaurants. It was supposed to be 15 days. It turned into 5 months. And after 5 months, the NBA is back. People still are on somewhat of a lockdown. People are still wary of going out. And you would think after 5 months, live sports was back. And the NBA, which is one of the most popular sports in the world, it comes back and the ratings are down 4%. And I think most people who are objective will say, well, it's because of their social justice warrior stance. It's because of their wokeism, and it's because of their hypocrisy in a sense. And so when that guy, the sports executive, and there's some people that are standing up for the NBA and they're saying, well, you can't really read too much into the numbers. And this guy here says there's no context to it. There's no comparable. Well, that's wrong, because about the same time that the NBA started, Major League Baseball started, and the NHL started. Now, UFC, that's been going on for a while. There's NASCAR, which their ratings are actually up. But let's just look at the NHL and Major League Baseball, two sports that have as well bought into this, we want to better society, but they haven't gone full bore like the NBA has, and I think everyone would agree with that. The NBA is front and center, and again, more power to them, but I think that the hypocrisy and their willingness not to listen to criticism is bringing their ratings down. I mean, there are people that are saying we're not watching because of the stance you guys take, because of your inability to understand what you're doing is wrong and hypocritical, and they don't want to have a conversation. Now, again, the NHL, the Major League Baseball, they're part of that movement as well, but it's not as in your face as the NBA. And NHL ratings are up 57%, and Major League Baseball ratings are up 18%. So this executive trying to make excuses, well, it's because it's summer and you really can't compare it. Well, yeah, you can. There's other sports going on in the summer. We've been locked down for 5 months. The world is hungry for something. We can't even go to the movies. I live in Oklahoma. They're just getting ready to start opening up movies again. And of course, you'll be distanced out. And so NBA ratings down 4%. Major League Baseball ratings up 18%. NHL ratings up 57%. They all play in the same, under the same restrictions. No fans. It's different. But for people to downplay the negative ratings for the NBA and just throw it off as, well, it's summer, and for the guy to say there's no comparable, of course there is. There's other sports we can compare it to. The two sports, Major League Baseball and NHL, they're killing it in the ratings. And the NBA, woke social justice, again, hypocritical. You have guys like Steve Kerr, Greg Popovich, Silva, the commissioner Silva, and all the people there. It's almost like they lecture you. LeBron James, James Harden. You can go down the list. They were all lecturing people, calling them out, saying, wait a minute, you're supporting a group that's anti-American and Marxist. Wait a minute, you don't stand up to the abuses that are going on in China. And we know why. It's because of money. And that's fine. Money drives the world. But just I think the stance that the NBA has taken, the hardline stance that they've taken, their hypocrisy is really driving people to say, we're not watching. And that's, again, you can look at Major League Baseball and NHL. Their ratings are way up. NBA's is down. And I think that that's a shame, because I think sports are such an important part of society, of our culture. And I think sports, for me, is something that can blur the lines of division in this country. I don't like identity politics. I don't like the games that politicians play on both sides that divide people. And sports is the one thing, or one of the few things in the world that brings people together. I can't wait till they open up the stadiums and people can go watch the sports. And I hope sports starts to realize, wait a minute, the power that they have is not in plastering messages across a court and lecturing people, but being hypocritical when they don't stand up for other human rights abuses. The power that sports has is bringing people together from every race, from every nation, from every creed, from every color. It doesn't make a difference. People come and cheer and get angry and yell and scream and have, it's just an event to be there to watch sports, whether it's at a bar, at your house, at the stadium. It brings people together. And playing sports, I think, is one of those things that, man, racism just flies out the window, or should. I can remember playing sports from the time I was a kid through high school, whether it was basketball or football or baseball or you name it. We didn't care who you were or where you were from or what your race was or what your creed was or what your class was. Could you play the game? Could you throw the ball? Can you pass? Can you catch? Can you defend? Let's play. And the greatest part about that is you had a system. And if you played organized sports, and even street sports, but when you played organized sports, you had a coach, and he would point the team towards a goal, and you'd have a group of guys or women or men, or they had a group, and they were going towards that goal together. And the lines between the divisions were blurred, and that's a good thing that sports does. And people like to participate in sports for that reason, and people like to watch sports for that reason, because they can forget about the division. They can forget about the junk. They can forget about society. They can forget about all the stuff that we have to deal with. When I'm watching sports, if I'm watching the Mets or the Islanders or the Thunder or the Seahawks or the Cowboys, Oklahoma State Cowboys, for a couple hours, I'm not thinking about the bills I have to pay. I'm not thinking about house repairs I have to make. I'm not thinking about issues that I might be having at work or at home or worrying about my kids' futures I'm not worried about any of that. I'm focused on the game. I'm focused on that play. And not only that, I get to get on social media and interact with people who are doing the same thing. And the last thing any of us want, any sports fans want, is in the middle of that to have someone come up and say, well, did you know all white people are racist? Wait, what? Number one, that's stupid. And number two, we're watching the game. Can we talk about that later? Can I call you out on that later and tell you how stupid that is? Let's watch the game. Let's see if they score the touchdown here. Let's see if they can come back from the 5-point deficit. Let's see if Jacob deGrom can pitch another gem and have the Mets blow it like they did today. They still won, but that's what we watch sports for. And it brings us together, and it's a great equalizer. And I think the NBA is, and I think the NFL will probably make the same mistake. I have no idea. Hopefully they'll figure out a way to do it correctly. But I think the NBA is making a pretty big mistake. The ratings reflect it, and it's dividing a lot of people. When I think sports is something that can bring people together and should bring people together. And I just think that's a shame. And I just can't stand that. Depending on what side you're on, the defense is always, well, you're wrong and I'm right. Like this executive saying that, listen, you can't compare, you can't look at the ratings. Yes, you can. That's what they're there for. And well, you can't say they're down for any reason. Yeah, you can. And when he says there's no comparables, yeah, there is. There's other sports that started about the same time because they all shut down for COVID. Let's look at their ratings. Now, if all the sports ratings were down 4 or 5% or were about even, then we can say, yeah, it's a no-brainer. It really doesn't. There's no connection. They're all down. But when you look at hockey up 57%. Are you kidding? 57%, and hockey's not even that widely distributed on a lot of the sports stations, so hockey's up 57%. Major League Baseball, which has had huge trouble when it came to ratings over the past few years, is up 18%. 18% people are watching baseball. NBA playoffs, now the hockey is playoffs too, but NBA playoffs, down 4%. And again, I hope it gets better. Right? I'm not one of those guys that says, if you go woke, I'm not going to watch you. I don't base my enjoyment of something on your politics. If I like baseball, I like baseball. If I like watching basketball, I'll watch basketball. Okay? I think what they're doing is stupid. I think some of the things they're supporting is silly. I think they're hypocritical in some reason, in some areas. But I'm still going to watch sports. I'm still going to go to movies. I don't care. If Alec Baldwin's in a movie, even if I think he's an insane leftist, I don't care. I'm going to go watch a movie because he's funny or he's a good actor. If Clint Eastwood makes a movie, Gran Torino's a great movie. I don't care that he's a right winger. I'm going to go watch the movie because he makes good movies. We watched Richard Jewell the other day. Man, that was a great movie. And it didn't get the credit it deserved. I know people were upset about some portrayals of people, but it was a good movie. And I think timely to think about how the government and the media can portray things and really ruin someone's life that they didn't need to. But I don't care the politics. If it's good, I'm going to go watch it. I've said before on this podcast, I think, Tom Cruise is a certifiable nut who believes in a certifiably weird religion. But he makes good movies. Mission Impossible movies are awesome. Me and my wife love them. We go watch them when they're, I can't wait for Top Gun 2 to come out. I'm going to go, I'll be first in line to see that because it's a good movie. He's a good guy. I don't care. That kind of stuff doesn't prevent me from going to support something, but it does other people. And I think people are making a mistake. The NBA is making a mistake with the way they're handling things. I think Major League Baseball and hockey have done a better job of it. And again, my hope is NFL takes some lessons and figures out a way to support the right things or things that don't divide, and brings people together. And sports brings us together. I hope college football comes back. I hope COVID keeps going down. It looks like the cases are going down. The deaths have not skyrocketed like people have predicted. But man, I think sports is one of those things that can bring people together. And I wish that they would take that message to heart. The problem that you have with that is you have a lot of, again, I've said this before, left-wing, progressive reporters who are also sports reporters. We know that the media is dominated by liberals and leftists. It just is. Go look at the giving records for presidential candidates every year, every 4 years, and you'll see it's 90-something% of it goes to Democrats. So we know they lean that way. And again, whatever, that's what they do. But sports is the same way. You have a few now that are stepping up, and that's why I love, even though I think social media is problematic in what it does, I think it also is a godsend for other voices to be heard on the right, and I think that's a cool thing, and people can see that, hey, maybe there's another way to look at things when it comes to sports. But again, I just thought it would be interesting to look at the ratings, and when I read this, when I read that the NBA ratings were down, it didn't surprise me, but I didn't think it was going to be such a drastic turn or a drastic in comparison to baseball and hockey. Man, NHL up 57%, Major League Baseball up 18%, NBA ratings down 4%. And again, I hope for the betterment of the country that all of it, that the NBA goes up. That Major League Baseball goes up, that hockey goes up, that football goes up, that college football, I hope they play and it goes up, and I hope they go back to bringing the country together, all sizes, all shapes, and all beliefs and all creeds and all colors and all races, and they have that power. I've seen it. We've lived it. People that play sports have lived it. So I hope that happens. I don't know if that's really a theological pipe moment. I was just, like I said, the thing that shocked me again was when I read that the ratings were down for NBA. I just assumed that Major League Baseball and NHL would be down as well. But obviously no. And again, I would have predicted that they would have been way up on all accounts, because again, we've been quarantined for 5 months. We've been locked out of things for 5 months. For the NBA to be the one that's down, which, I think is one of the most exciting leagues around, it's a shame. And I hope that, again, they figure some things out. Again, you can look at what LeBron James did after the Lakers lost. You can go see how they're reacting. You can go see just the smugness of it too. And one of the things that has bugged me about this whole discussion that we've had is it's really not a discussion, and it depends on what the discussion is. I can remember when the whole thing started, so we need to have a discussion about Black Lives Matter, and again, Black Lives Matter, but not the organization. I think that's just an evil organization with horrible people that run it. Again, I'll pray for them. Hope they turn from their evil ways and not. I hope they don't become I hope they turn from being anti-American and anti-family and Marxist. But it was okay. Let's have a conversation. And then people would say, okay, well, let's have a conversation. And someone would say something, and they would say, well, no, you can't say that. So you don't want a conversation. And then people would say, well, yeah, we don't want a conversation. We just want you to listen. Okay, I'm going to listen. So it went from let's have a conversation, and you can go read this if you go do some searches on Google or on Twitter or on whatever site you look at. It would say, let's have a conversation. A conversation was had, and they didn't like what people were saying, so they said, no, we want you to just listen. So you guys need to listen. We're the ones that are gonna, we're the oppressed ones. Pick whatever category, whether it was Black Lives or some gender thing or some class thing or some whatever. You need to listen because you're the problem. So you need to listen. Okay, I'm gonna listen. So keep quiet. And then when you're quiet, well, if you're silent, then you're complicit. So you need to have a conversation. You can't say what you want to say. You need to be quiet. And if you're quiet, you're complicit. So at that point, that's when I shut down. I said, I really don't care. I know what the leaders of these groups believe. I have their own words. I know what the website says. I don't need to listen. I don't need to have a conversation. You're wrong, I'm right. Now, if you want to debate me on that, let's do that, but they didn't want to. It was, you're going to sit there and listen. And so that start of it, the whole thing of you need to listen, sit there and listen and listen to what we say. Just goes against the whole let's have a conversation. And then you'd even have someone who would say, okay, well, I don't want to see color. I want to be like Martin Luther King Jr., where I don't judge people by the color of their skin. I judge them by the content of their character. And some people would say, yeah, that's a great thing to think. And then others would say, well, no, you can't do that. You have to see my color because that's who I am. Well, which is it? Again, there's no conversation, and it's both sides because again, you have people on the other side who are not willing to listen to anything. You're like, no, you're wrong. There's no racism in this country. Of course, there's racism in this country. Now, let's have a conversation about whether there's systemic racism or just racism and what the difference is and how we can combat that together. But it just seems like both sides are just at each other's throat. You say one thing and it leads to somebody else. Instead of listening, they're going to attack instead of maybe contributing to the conversation. So the whole thing just got tiresome to me. And again, that's why I think that the NBA, the way they're doing it is a smug, in your face, and there's nothing wrong with being in your face, but again, when there's some hypocrisy joined with it, it just makes it hard to swallow. Put that in your theological pipe and smoke it. I think that sports is a great equalizer in this society. I think it's a healer. I think, again, it's a place where everyone can come together, and I wish we would. And I wish we would recognize that, yes, there's some injustices in this world, and we need to fix them. But no, not all white people are racist. Okay? And that's the problem. You have one group, Black Lives Matter, says all white people are racist, and that's it, and we're going to dismantle America. Well, no. And then you have another far group over here saying nothing's wrong with this country. It's perfect the way it is. Well, no, it's not. I think America's a great country. I think it's the greatest country in the world. But there's obviously issues that we need to address when it comes to income disparity, when it comes to racism. Yes, but to me, America is the greatest country because we can fix it. We have fixed it. It's gotten better. Regardless of what they're telling you now, things have gotten better. And they'll continue to get better. We've made huge strides, and we can continue to make huge strides. The answer is not the Black Lives Matter answer. It's not dismantling America and going to socialism. It's not going to Marxism. It's not dismantling the family. It's not defunding and abolishing the police. That's not the answer. The answer is fixing the things that are wrong and continuing to make progress like we have. So that was probably all over the place. Again, my whole point is sports are great. I hope they get back on track. I hope we can move away from woke sports, and I hope that the NBA is learning their lesson, and I hope that the NFL is watching, and I hope that Major League Baseball and NHL continue to do what they're doing, and I hope that sports comes back. I hope they start letting people go to games, and I hope we can get back to that kind of stuff, and we can, and I think we can do it together. Again, the main thing I always say is be nice. Don't compromise. Don't let your niceness be where you're not going to speak up for the truth. But be nice to people, be loving, be caring. As someone who believes in God, I think that's what he wants us to love each other. The Bible says that God is love, and we're made in his image, so we're made to love each other. So, let's move away from division and divisiveness, and let's love each other. Let's be nice. So how about put that in your theological pipe and smoke it and be nice, and we'll see you next time.
Well. Bye.